Hello, Macey here. If you remember from the last episode, we've left the KSS Spirit of Kerbin here in low orbit, and earlier in the episode we put the Prototype Vulture into orbit to test docking ports and so on, but we left it there for the time being, having abandoned it and gone back to this vessel. But that vessel has defected. It has defected to the Hanland Corp, which is the same rival organisation that put the spy satellite up over KSC, if you remember that video. Well, like that, we cannot allow this. So I'm sailing up here to higher orbit where I can engage it, and I've run out of fuel halfway. The reason being is because in the ascent stage I've ripped out the fuel lines that connect the inner fuel to the engines. Oh well, bit of an oversight. So now the Spirit of Kerbin is in position. We want to go back to the Gladius, which is the armed transport ship we mentioned in the last episode, which will be joining the engagement, hopefully picking up any survivors. So on this trajectory it should turn up an hour later, just in time for the battle's aftermath, rescue survivors and take them back to custody. So here's my last node that I've laid here for interception. I want to keep it 2.5 kilometers away from the other carrier, because if they have to load in the same space it's going to be lag city. So here we are, let's destroy this thing. It looks like we severely underestimated our target and they've launched a preemptive strike against us. That torpedo has done immense amounts of damage. It's completely damaged the front cowl. It's destroyed one of the fighters and damaged the other three, which is not how I wanted to start this engagement, but it's only fair to let the enemy fight back. So it's time to launch a fighter immediately, hunt down that enemy fighter and take it out and make sure it never gets back to its carrier. This is an outrage, and the Hanland Corp will be made to pay for this. It looks like the initial hit took out the cowl at the front, which then careered inside to the hangar and caused chaos inside and ripped off half of the solar sails for all of these and damaged everything. This is all bits floating around everywhere. I'm just docking here with the torpedoes, having refueled it with RCS. Now we're ready to get after him. Parts of the early half of this video are quite laggy, I'm sorry about that, but it does get better towards the end. So I'm catching up with the Vulture's fighter now, with Red Leader here, my fighter extraordinaire. He can get the job done if anyone can. It's quite a small target to hit, but we're going to see if we can knock it out with a torpedo. So here we go. As he's fleeing, let's see if we can take out his engines or something. That will stop him from getting home. Okay, launch torpedo. Because I'm reloading these, I have to launch them manually. And that's a hit! But it's only his solar sail. He looks okay, the rest of him's fine. Well, an eye for an eye, at least. But we have failed to stop him, so back to the carrier. Okay, let's launch a proper assault now against the actual carrier proper. There's one way of stopping him from getting home, and that's to destroy the carrier. So he's did quite a lot of damage with his torpedo. So let's take not one, but this time I'm going to take a stack of 3. I didn't actually design it to do like this, but we're low on fighters and this engagement isn't going how I wanted it to so far. So I'm going to take 3 torpedoes with me this time and launch all 3 of them at their carrier. Hopefully that will be enough to take it out. 3 torpedoes on the front is a little bit more cumbersome to fly around with, especially because the RCS control isn't very centralized. But they do fly actually. This is quite a good way of doing it. So Red 4 is going to go out with all 3 torpedoes. I might arm them with 3 from now on. I mean, it does look like a Mosquito class with a long armament at the front. So, okay, let's see if we can get some real damage on this carrier now. Although all my fighters have been damaged, I can still use the ion drive just at half power, unfortunately, with the one sail. So I want to hit these targets as far away as possible, because then I can build kinetic energy with the torpedo. The further it flies before it hits target, the more speed it builds up and the more damage it will do at the far end. So I'm trying to get these long shots as possible. This looks on target, and that's a hit. I haven't got any time to inspect the damage right now because I'm flying towards the target too quick, and there's 2 more torpedoes to release. So here goes the second. I have to laboriously cycle through targets and ejector and so on every time to get back to my ship, but I'll edit that out every time so you don't have to see it. And there is another hit! That looked quite good actually, so just cycle back again and release the 3rd torpedo before we bang into the target. We won't follow that in because we need to turn round this time, otherwise we might ram it entirely, but that's a miss. Okay, that's a miss, so only 2 have hit target, but they looked quite good. We'll have to inspect the damage, see what we've got, and not much. We've given it a bloody nose at least, but that's pretty much it. It's a tough old bird actually. I'm quite disappointed with that. With the 1 torpedo it launches at us, it absolutely devastates us, but firing 2 in return does almost no damage. So as the battle rages on, clearly not in our favour, we're going to have to send out our now final fighter with 3 torpedoes again and see if we can take out this carrier. But this is our last fighter. If we don't do it this time, I'll have to come back and rearm and so on and try again. So hopefully this time we can take it out. I'm going to try and hit it from the front this time so we can try and get some torpedoes into the throat, as it were, because hitting the engines obviously wasn't doing a lot of damage at all. So let's see if Red 3 has any more success. He's got his single sail out again with his half power ion drives. I'm just monitoring the electricity consumption. So line this up and let's sail out and finish this job. Please just finish this job. This carrier needs to be destroyed, and it needs to be destroyed now. So here we are. We're going to try and get one down the throat. We're aimed right up to the front of it now. So let's launch a torpedo and see where we get. I've come a little bit closer this time so I can be a little bit more accurate, but it's still far enough away to gather some considerable speed, and it's looking good. Oh, straight down the throat. Oh, please, please. Has that done anything? No. Yes. It's taken out the inner docking port. That is ideal. It had its only remaining RCS fuel in that little node there, and it's also taken off its ASAS, so it's pretty much unstable, if not immobile now. Let's try and finish this job. Okay, another one right down the throat. It obviously seems a little bit more sensitive to get it inside the hangar, like what it did with us, but that's going to miss. No, it's hit the cowling, but it might have done some damage. I'm just going to scroll through them quickly. Oh yes, it has. It's done some damage. Excellent. Excellent. That's looking a little bit more. It's still superficial though. It really is superficial. We want to destroy this thing. So last one, you can see it's slewing over there. It's spinning because we've taken out its ASAS. So one more hit, but it looks like it's going to hit armor. That's probably not a good shot. It's gonna. Oh, it has hit. It's very good. It's hit, but I doubt that will do any damage. Okay, so now let's inspect this properly. What have we done? Well, that's looking a bit better now. We've taken out a lot of the front of this, but it's still cosmetic. But we've taken out the RCS control and we've taken out the ASAS, so that is real damage at last. But this carrier, if you've noticed, is far from destroyed. So that's it. I'm left with no other option but to regroup. Let's take a tactical look at the battle so far. It's looking a bit messy, so I'm just going to delete all of the broken ships and docking ports and so on. So this is the revised battle. This is the 2 carriers here and here, and these are the fighters quite disorganised and spread out between. That's the enemy fighter making his way back. Red leader heading back to our carrier now, and Red 4 and Red 3 also heading back to base. And this is the Gladius, which has finally arrived in the scene now, an hour after the battle began. So I'm just cycling through my fighters here and making sure they're all on the right trajectory, and then I can, when one gets close, I can then dock them and flip back to another one, so they're all making their way back at the same time. But this is Red Leader now coming into dock and put him into his berthing so he can wait for his companions to arrive. And let's get back to the rest. So I'm just checking the trajectory. It needs a couple of adjustments on the way to allow for the curvature of the orbit. So it's looking a bit better now. This is the enemy fighter making its way back, limping its way home to the carrier. And Red 3 and Red 4 nearly home. And this is the Gladius now, which is starting to slip out of orbit again. So I'm going to just put that on the right trajectory. I haven't shown it before, but this is basically what you do. Just select the target and make sure your prograde marker, the direction you're travelling in, the yellow circle, is over the pink marker, which is the position of your target. So overshoot it by a considerable amount, and we're just changing the trajectory so our prograde marker is over the target marker, and there I'm heading directly towards it. So that's how you do it. So now I've flicked back to another fighter, and this one's ready to dock. Put away the solar sails. So this is a way of moving the whole fleet in unison in real time without doing one and then the other, because by the time you did one, the rest of your fleet will have drifted impossibly far away. So that's another fighter home and safe, and now just one more, so it's looking pretty good. And then we'll get the Gladius to join the side at last. So yeah, just get this last one in, and there's the Gladius on its way in. And not a moment too soon either, because the Gladius has 6 torpedoes, and we are running out of torpedoes on this ship. So it's very good to have the Gladius turn up. I'm very glad now that I decided to bring it along and arm it. The battle was supposed to be over by now, and he was only supposed to pick up survivors, but I think he's going to have to take part and help me destroy this thing. So I'll keep it docked at the top here just for now, not exchanging anything, just so it doesn't drift off. And in the meantime, I'm getting this enemy ship back because I can't just leave him stranded there. But he's run out of RCS halfway home, so the ship's useless anyway because he hasn't got any more torpedoes or RCS to refuel it. So I've just dumped him on board. So he got home safe at last. Now back to the Spirit of Kerbin, and I'm arranging a meeting of my senior officers from both ships with Captain Jebediah here in the wardroom, and they're going to figure out how to proceed. Now I've noticed from this ship, I've been examining it, and we've exposed the RCS tank, and it actually has got some RCS fuel left in it. I didn't realise. Now that is very susceptible to explosion and could possibly saw the ship in half. So we need to get a surgical strike on that point, and we could finish this. But this time I want to do it far more organised. I'm going to attack as an actual strike group. So I've just parked the 2 fighters out here in orbit for the meantime and wait for the Gladius to join them. And then I'm going to attack as an organised strike group and deliver all of these torpedoes, all of my remaining torpedoes, on target. I want the Gladius to go in first and deliver a punishing salvo from whatever angle it can manage, which will buy the fighters time to get in and hit that weak spot and hopefully finish this job. If we can't do it this time, then we have failed, because there's no more armament left after this. So just sending the Gladius on its way, and I'll join it with the 2 fighters. Now I've set a rendezvous point about halfway between here and the enemy carrier, at which point I'll then slow them down to about 10 meters per second relative to the target, so they can group and fly in formation, and so they all arrive at the target at the same time. We can do this much more organised rather than the fiasco of the opening engagement. So this is how it now looks. That's our carrier, that's the enemy carrier, and this is the strike group closing on target, nicely kept together there in formation. And when we get a little closer, we can release the Gladius on to do the preliminary bombardment. So let's show the Hanland Corp how a real fighting force operates. No! Red 3! Red 3. It's gone. No capsule. That is a fatality. I don't believe it. That's actually him dead. He's died. Look at all those bits floating. Right. That is it. You will now pay. You will now pay. You have just taken the life of a very valued employee of the Spiritwolf Corporation, and you will live to regret that. So that's all 6 torpedoes launched in one punishing salvo, and it's looking straight. I think that's going to be a hit, and that's a hit! Target destroyed? No, surely not. Surely not. Doesn't make any sense, because now it's heading away from me, whereas before I was heading towards it at 10 meters per second. We need a closer look at this. Something odd has happened here. And it's the bridge. I've decapitated it. I've decapitated the enemy carrier. I mean, that's terrible, really, because that was 2 more Kerbals just lost their lives. I mean, this is turning into a tragedy, but look at the way this is shaking. It's having a fit. There's something severely wrong with this ship. That is not right. It's decapitated and twitching like a chicken. So I've just switched back to red leader to regroup and maybe fire a few more shots, and it's gone. It's disappeared. Swallowed by the Kraken. It's just disappeared. I'm checking the orbits here, I'm checking all the debris, and there's nothing left. Because I have persistent debris turned off, I think it just counted the entire ship as debris and deleted it when I went out of range. So that's it. There was another Kerbal down in the communications bunker of that ship, which vanished with the wreckage. So all in all, that's 3 enemy Kerbals dead and 1 of Spiritwolf's dead. That's 4 Kerbals died. This is less of a victory and more of a tragedy. So 2 fighters leave and 1 fighter returns. Red leader. And that's it. A black day for Spiritwolf. The Gladius that was supposed to pick up survivors and take them back to custody now has to go back to KSC empty-handed and somehow explain to the authorities why there were no survivors in this tragedy, the Battle of Vulture's Drift. It was supposed to be a simple operation. Turn up, disable the carrier, winkle that crew out and take them back to custody. But it ended up in a fiasco, huge amounts of damage on both sides and the loss of 4 Kerbals. It's hard to imagine a different scenario other than our 2 corporations going to full-scale war now. It was entirely their fault, of course, but, you know, the blame game can be thrown around. I guess we're both to blame. So this is the Gladius coming back with an empty cargo of passengers and a lot to explain. And this is the Spirit of Kerbin flying at half-mast, waiting to be rearmed and re-equipped, and then we can send it out to lathe and even possibly repair it before it goes. Who knows? Bye for now.